May 20th, 2024 at 5 p.m. The Finance Savings Committee now in session. And we'll take these agenda items as they are in order presented to us. And if we get down to some time, we may move the agenda item and let you follow Steve when it comes to transportation, just so you don't have to sit here and listen to the rest of us. So Steve, you're up for the transportation contract as soon as Angela gets back here with your information.
Did you want me to present something?
Sure. You can start presenting. Come on.
Okay. I didn't know I was going to present. You have the contract information.
Yes.
It's just basic 3.5% increase from last year. Obviously, we've had some increases. Capital costs have gone up. I don't know where those are going to go, but school buses have gone up in the last 3 years from 100,000 to 115 now to 130. No idea where that's going to end up. Insurance costs have gone up, no fault of our own. There's less and less players. It's kind of like non-emergency medical transportation with the assisted transport, same thing. There's less and less insurers that are taking on that market. So that kind of fluctuates. So that went up. And then we're behind. We've always been behind, and I've never had an issue with it on our pay for our drivers. I only ask for what I think we need to make sure that we have quality drivers, and Manitowoc Public School District does have quality drivers out there right now. We're going to go from 18 to 18.75 an hour. We're behind the bigger cities like Lamers and Coliston. They're at $23 an hour. But I think, just in my longevity there, I've developed a group of people that, it's a team, and you get to know each other, you develop that relationship, and they enjoy doing it. It's not all about the money. So those are basically the increases that, get us to that 3.5%. There's really nothing else to it. Obviously, fuel surcharges, we have a fuel surcharge, so whatever the gas price goes up and down, it's covered in that cost. In the contract.
I make a motion to approve the contract.
Second.
Any further discussion of increasing the contract with the transportation company Brand Buses to 3.5%?
I think we're getting a heck of a value here. I think we need to be cognizant of our resources, but we've had no problems thus far, and we thank you for their services.
Are you having trouble with bus drivers?
Well, we've always had, it's always a difficult position to fill. It's not extremely high pay. You're asking people to, there's drug testing, there's nowadays, it's a bigger challenge than ever. But physicals too, the requirements for physicals that we have, background checks, all that stuff, it does make it a challenge. We've just been very fortunate, and I think we'll be fortunate for some years yet. But once that baby boomer generation stops working, like everybody, it's going to be a challenge. But I think we're still 3 and 4 years out from that.
So we're really not looking because of the pay, not getting the bus drivers. It's because of other issues.
We've always been one driver short. As long as I've been there for 28 years, there's always a driver short. That's just the way it is. So you're always looking for that person. I think it's no different than any other industry. But, I'm not to that point where, a lot of the other companies, and I'm on the committees with these guys at the state level, with the Cobusons and the Lamers, and they like to do pay. They like to, okay, we need to increase pay. I don't always agree with that. I think that if you develop a cause, if you are, we're transporting local kids to and from school, if you get behind that and what we do for this community, I think it sometimes alleviates the factor of pay. And we have been able to do that over the course of 10 years. So if it becomes an issue where we're struggling and we can't find drivers, I will be the first one to come to this committee and say, we got a problem.
Okay.
You can call
Awesome.
Keith, because now he can drive.
Yes, I can. But no, I can't anymore.
Voluntarily.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those, Tony.
Historically, I think they've been the best price we've gotten to by a wide margin. So thank you for the hometown discount. And,
it's been a pleasure. Not always a pleasure, but it has been. It's an industry. It's fun.
And I think like to the point, like the last year or two, we've looked at like how much, if we were paying, how much Green Bay Appleton, some of them are paying at like 268 a route, we'd be paying 2.7 million compared to 1.9.
Yep.
So it's a pretty substantial.
It's, you know, and there is a significant difference. It's also the market, you know. I'm not gonna say, you know, that, you know, don't think of us as cheap, okay? Think of us as a value, okay? Because we're not cutting corners. Our maintenance is top notch. We have one of the best mechanics, I think, in the state of Wisconsin. He keeps these buses in tip-top shape. So we do not, when you say cheap, we don't skip maintenance, you know, we provide a good service. But I think our area is a lot less expensive to live in, you know, than Green Bay and Appleton. But yes, I think we're a good value.
Awesome, thank you. Anybody else? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So I will bring this forth, it'll go on the agenda, and because it came out of committee, it'll just go to discussion at the board meeting. Motions coming out of committees don't need to be seconded, just discussed, and then we'll vote on it. So thank you very much.
You know, gotta get back to my habits with this. Who did the first?
I go to enough meetings where it's like,
Tony.
We got a lot of
Sure.
exciting stuff.
oh, I bet.
Okay, let's skip down to 4B, printing.
Yes.
Come on up.
up. Okay, we have several bids. Why don't you come up here, and I can, or- So we have, every 5 years, we put our printing, our multi-service center printing machines up for bid. And so this is, you know, we put it out for bid. You can see all the attachments in there for the information. And I think there are several things I asked Sherry to come in and make, you know, help me talk to, just to give a little bit of an overview. There's quite a range in prices that you're gonna see between the different bids. So looking at this, and I had a chance to talk a little bit more with all of the bidders today, just via email. One of the main things that we've, from like our sort of incumbents bidder, is Novatech. And one of the main things that they provide for us is the ability to have supplies on hand and in stock, okay? And Sherry is able to order those in advance to a point where she's able to fix machines and keep business running. So that's one of the main things. And like district-wide, we're also using Xerox machines. So like to keep the same machine has been helpful, and that's what they're running in there right now. It's not impossible to work with different makes of machines, but that's where we're at right now. One of the questions that was still lingering at the time when I put this together, and I held off making, usually I'll make a recommendation in any of the documents, is I needed to confirm, because there was such a widespread in amounts, the fact that whether they did or did not include the metered supplies. I think next time I do something like this, I'll say you need to fill out this checklist and tell me exactly where I find this in your bid document, because sometimes even if you feel like we give the most amount of detail, you still don't get back what you want. That's what you're learning through bid processes. So Novatech, and also with Novatech, we used to get what's called an all-you-can-eat is what it was called, where your black clips they were all basically included, but you essentially paid for it in your lease price. So we were paying $55,000 annually for this. And this was all pre-COVID. So that's one of the challenges too, where there's been a lot of inflation since the last time this has been put out to bid. So I think that's part of the story. I did find out from all of the bidders that they are able to provide all of the metered supplies and have them on hand, pre-ordered to have in stock and on hand. Okay. So, you know, that considered, you know, the Xerox machines is something we're used to already. So that it kind of brings us down to like the Ricoh machines. It's a different machine, not that it would be any different, but that's where I would lean more towards Wisconsin Document Imaging at this point, because it was have the Xerox machines and at the lowest price compared overall. The all you can eat system is not available anymore. They're going industry standard
Through
is to
Novatech.
provide that through Novatech. So that's where we don't really have that as an option anymore. So that's where we didn't have that before, and I don't know if that itself would have lent it to being cheaper, but it's just kind of where it's at right now. Do you want to speak to some of that, or?
No, I guess the only thing is with the downtime with Novatech, they were awesome. The turnaround with the customer service, online help, they had that. All my supplies were on hand. And if there was a malfunction to like the drum or the filters or anything, I had extra ones on the shelf. So that was my biggest concern. I told her, I said, I don't want to be down because the turnaround to get stuff back out to the staff, you know, is tremendously. I take that to heart because I've been in the district 30 years. And it's like, I've seen the turnaround in the printing department, but yeah, so whatever could, how can I want to say it? Whatever we can have on hand that I can change out everything, get my production up and running is fine with me.
Have you experienced with any of these other bidders,
No.
difficulty with that turnaround?
No, I have not. Wisconsin Imaging, at one time, I know they could not match what Novatech had, you know, what the service or having stuff on hand. But if you got that,
That was my
today?
sense when I talked to him
Yes.
today. And I asked directly, I said, can we order online? Can we have it on hand? So we have
Okay.
no downtime. And he said, yes, we can make sure to ensure that you guys are not always running. So. did
because
get
I
that
can
confirmed.
I can order online then too if I need extra, okay.
Correct.
And the difference in cost between Novatech and Wisconsin?
There is about a $40,000.
Significant,
$40,000 difference. It's significant. I was really surprised at how much it gone up. You know, I thought, well, with inflation, not 100% surprised on that, but I thought the general amounts more, I
Who's
was
paying now?
$55,000. Let me look that up real quick, but you know, that's around what it is right now annually, so it's
Now,
So this will be even a savings over that.
correct.
we don't have to
Like
pay
one
for any
Wisconsin
of it?
Tech or Wisconsin.
Right, right.
Do we have to pay for any of that? Is it all included? Because it's like 50,000 for just all of the meter and reading stuff. When I figured it out of all the punishing for a year.
So what we had,
So if he's gonna throw that all in, that's extremely an awesome deal. Not unless there's something behind that, you know what I mean?
yeah, when I asked him today, he just said, I said, he said that it includes all drums, Xerox modules, developer, fuser webs, wigs, toner bottles, and rollers under the service price quoted. And he says currently we're able to pre-order and stock these items to have them on hand. Would that also be possible? I said, absolutely, we want you to have what you need to keep those machines up and running.
Okay, perfect.
So that's what, you know, and that, when I heard that, and then, you know, the other Rico's bid, they said the same too, and then I knew that's with Novatech, we'd be able to get that, yes.
So is there a reason that, I thought I heard you say that you'd recommend Wisconsin Document Imaging? Is there a reason that you wouldn't recommend Rico since they're less than that?
The only concern there is that like all of our other machines in the district, it's a concern and not a concern at the same time, where like we have the Xerox for the whole fleet of machines and Wisconsin Document Imaging is our vendor for the rest of the district. So, so not that we couldn't go with Rico, I just don't know, like their use of those machines, and that's why, you know, we'd asked for that similar product. We know that it works well, we know that it'll stand the test of time, but they're all of those, like any kind of copy machine is gonna have the similar features and similar types of operations as well. So not that we couldn't, you know, look at that. And she also had affirmed that as well. So that is definitely, we could still go that way too.
What about the service? Is it same day service yet? No. Let's see.
I mean, all of those will be,
Okay.
you know, like,
Rico uses a different machine though.
Yeah, it is
They
a
don't
different.
use the Xerox, which we've had.
Yeah, so Rico's a brand, and then
Right.
this, hers, her comments here, she said, we can all order through online and pre-order in stock supplies. So I asked them the same, questions today. I said, she said, with the Quick Rate, the Wisconsin contract issues all the parts, listed below, as well as toner and staples. So metered supplies, which include drums, Xerox module, fuser, web waste, toners, and rollers. Hope this helps.
So the Novatech contract would be what?
Novatech would be, excuse me.
80 something.
80,
Oh, why did this go away here? I'm sorry.
Novatech card, 8842.
Here it is.
And then the Xerox is 78, 378.
And actually, the 88,000 one is Sharp, so it's not the Xerox machines. And then the Ricoh is 39,000, and then Wisconsin Document Imaging is that $4,000 difference with 43,000. Sorry. Oh, you need help getting.
okay, say that one more time. Wisconsin Imaging is what?
43,500. Ricoh is 39,500.
Ricoh's a different, Ricoh's not Xerox. though.
Not Xerox machine, but still, and Ricoh's still a very reputable brand too. That wouldn't have any.
And
concerns
Novatech
about
is
them.
88 with Xerox.
Here, yes, correct. Or 88 with a Sharp machine, which is also a different machine, and then with Xerox 78.
70, so.
So yeah, I was, and for some reason, if we would, with switching companies, have a problem where they would not be operating, we should be able
It's a
to-
year contract.
It's a, yeah, we could just say you're not performing to where we're, where we're comfortable and we can get out of it.
Anybody want to make a motion
I got a
or question?
question, yeah. I'm just trying to understand is there a real downside in going with the lower cost option? I mean, I get it's not that big of a difference, but it's still $4,000.
Yeah, it's money's money and its savings is, there wouldn't be, other than, there'd be a learning curve to learning a different machine.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is pretty similar. I don't, from the network side or the FM, not the FM audit, but the, paper cut job ticketing that we're going to, I don't think there would really be, sometimes there's driver setup things that are a little bit different, but
But I
It
think
should
the
work.
fact that the Xerox machine, your staff knows the Xerox machine, you know the tumblers, you know the rollers,
I don't
know,
know the text.
you know how to fix them.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be the same case pulling in a new machine. So for the $3,000,
it.
Yeah.
It could be worth it for, yeah.
correct.
Now,
So would they replace all the machines then with Ricoh machines? Is that how it will work? or-
this is actually only 3 machines total, because there are 2 major production machines and then 1 color. So here's, in the district, we've done a huge project since I've arrived to get to regional printing. So we used to have, basically printers, color printers, black and white printers. I don't wanna say almost in every classroom, but it kind of felt like it. And it was kind of at my central office desk, I could go like this and reach for my stuff off the printer. So we went to more regional printing where it was 1 machine in each office and went and just siphoned down the number of machines and then also releasing them now, so they're on a better replacement cycle. Like Lincoln's large copier had duct tape on it, and then also went to secure release, where if we have student records, like special education records or just confidential information, it was released that way. Overall, we do an okay job, but we can do a better job of routing and reminding people to send stuff to the MSC, because we're trying to, provide a service to the staff. And then they provide like binding services, laminating, top padding, and lots of services to sort of take that burden off the staff. And it's also the cheapest place in the district to copy. So that, that's why, we're going through this paper cut job ticketing in order to kind of do one routing. So like we have a workflow system for maintenance tickets and custodial things in our district, and then also for technology. It'll be the same thing for printing, and part of that will be sort of a renewed focus on send your stuff to the MSD for printing. I mean, I would,
Gentlemen,
Well, I would move to accept Wisconsin Imaging.
Wisconsin Imaging. Second,
I think we should consider unless you guys think there's some huge risk, I mean, I guess I don't print as many copies as you guys do. But I mean, the stuff go wrong a lot, I mean, it's
Oh, yeah.
$4,000, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this adds up.
Yeah.
$3,000 here,
I-
$4,000 here.
I'd have a little more questions about the different machines.
Yep.
Like, how, obviously it has the same fundamentals, but it's just a little bit different bells and whistles kind of, but you don't have any experience with that other machine, so
No.
you're kind of not answering, you won't be able to answer my questions, so I guess
We
I'm
would be
concerned, what?
we would be guessing to a degree as to the function, the,
Well, I'm sure they're all pretty much on the same line. If I have to change a drum, I'll change a drum or a bias roller, the little rollers for the drawers. We do all that, the fusers, the filters in the back. So a lot of that stuff that they don't let people touch, I had taken classes with Xerox with that.
so the stuff you have on hand will not fit these new machines.
Exactly.
So
Oh, the
that,
inventory?
yeah,
Unless they bring a new Xerox in, that's just a step ahead of it, above of it. Let's see. Some of those drums will still fit, but we don't get charged for any of that through Novatech right now. We'll just send it back and then they'll just send me whatever.
and the same sounds would be same with Wisconsin
with
Tech.
this, yes,
Mhm.
yeah. Mhm.
Angela, is there any training that could potentially be done with the new contract if we went with the new company, with the different machine?
Yeah,
I mean-
any of those companies, if, if we were to go in with the RICO, they would wanna come in, any company like that is gonna wanna make sure that your techs are able to.
Is the
use them.
meter supplies with Rico at all?
Mhm.
It says it
Yes.
there.
Yeah, and she confirmed that that comes along.
Can you explain that a little bit to me? Metered supplies, is that just?
Meter supplies is all, like the drums, the waste toner bottles, the rollers, the bias roll, the blanket, all of that comes in, it's on the shelf. And some of it is recyclable, so it may be malfunction, like if I stick a drum in and it doesn't work, I have one on the shelf to go back over there and get it, and stick it back in there. Keep me up and running.
I second the motion to stay with Wisconsin Document Imaging. Simply because of the familiarity, fourth, the 3,000 difference, yes, it's a difference, but significantly with the new company and not having the supply on hand, the training. We have directors and people that are used to that machines. I think it's a step in the direction. Plus, we're saving a great deal of money from leaving Novatech.
Discussion?
Any other discussion?
So, how confident would you be in changing over machines?
Confident.
Confident?
Yeah, I mean, we're not splitting the atom, right? It's just copy machines. I'm sure there's been advances, since they first came out, but
I used to run the press at McKinley, so yeah, I ran the press and done it.
yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with the name Ricoh. Obviously, everyone's familiar with Xerox too. So I just, to me, I look at it like, we have a lot of these little financial decisions that we make and, and it's closer to 4,000, I think, is the delta. So it is significant. I think that, I don't know, when do we have to make a decision on this by? Could they do a demo or something where you can at least play with it and see if it's like something you'd be comfortable with?
I could have them connect with her this week, not a problem. The other thing I would just want to verify is with Andy Nickelbein with the server end of PaperCut. Whether with doing that PaperCut job ticketing with the other,
Yeah.
with the Xerox machines, it shouldn't make a difference because it's, most organizations, while we're trying to go under one umbrella of one kind of brand, that's not the reality. And it should work between other ones, but we want to make sure.
Is there any other potential pitfalls of changing to a Ricoh machine that you could think of off the top of your head? That you're really happy with what you have right now, that really works really well?
No, actually, I would work with any machine. So long as I had everything on hand in the service, that's all I care about. I just want production up there to get it back into the schools. That's my most important thing, is the turnaround. You know, I guess I'm just familiar with Novatech because they've always been there. I mean, if I had called them today and said I didn't have Staples, by Thursday I'd have them.
Well, yeah, you have 40,000 more reasons why to get it the next day.
Mm-hmm. You know, so, yeah.
So I guess for discussion purposes, I would like to see maybe like a meet and greet or some sort of training that could be potentially done. And I would finish this motion, but then maybe think about tabling it or something, so.
When is the contract due?
We just should get the machines ordered as soon as possible, so what I could do is
You
come
mean if we
back
went to a new
Tuesday.
company?
Yeah,
Correct.
correct, because they need about a month lead time, so if we can go month to month with Novatech, that's possible. We would just want to move on it quickly, so I could touch base with Andy tomorrow and reach out to this sales lady from Rico and just say if she can connect with you to make sure that.
Yeah, I would do a demo, or maybe she can show you if there's another, they can do demos, right? People do that type of stuff all the time.
You would think so.
And then there's in the stuff that I shared with Sherry as well, just kind of like a breakdown of the different machines, so.
Yeah, and my suggestion, if you feel comfortable after that, I mean, it sounds like you feel fairly comfortable with it now, so I just think, you know, we have an opportunity to set the tone for the district as far as being, you know, prudent with how we purchase things, and if we purchase, you know, thousands of things throughout the year, I know this seems like a small amount, it's not a huge amount, but it's still $4,000, right? So it all adds up, and if it meets our needs, and gets the job done, I think we should explore it.
And I think they have references out there for all of them, right?
Yeah,
That we
they
can
did.
actually call back and see how
Mhm.
well they are.
Yes. And this is a
All
verification.
right, so we have a motion to take the Wisconsin document imaging on the floor, unless you want to rescind that to table it. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor of taking the Wisconsin document imaging, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So it is a tie. And tie goes lost, so we'll table it until
More information.
you get some more information. But I don't want to wait long.
Yeah, if I can get the information in the next 2 days, then we can bring it to next Tuesday if you guys are all right, and then do a full board.
Maybe. We'll be having
please?
discussions on next Tuesday.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds good. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So Angela, was this your idea to bring this? Did you look at the contract?
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for
welcome.
your input.
It's yeah, and it's a big deal, so, and it's
Yeah.
Okay,
critical.
student accident insurance.
Yes, so we have our student accident insurance policy, and I have these to pass around. Just, this talk goes over the amount of claims. I just asked Kyle, our agent, to provide these, and he was gonna see if he could provide more. I just asked him to maybe see if he could provide more history going back, but the memo for student accident insurance is included in the, I'm just going back up order-wise here, my bad. So the biggest thing, or biggest change this year that's proposed is adding catastrophic coverage. So the reason this is being recommended is because it would essentially match the coverage amount that WIAA sports are covered at through WIAA that's provided. So this coverage covers everything but WIAA, so it kind of put everything on an even playing field. And I thought it was interesting too, when you look at the sheet that I passed around, that our premiums 10 years ago used to be $12,700, so we're still less even if we add that coverage. It's a second point of insurance coverage. I always like to share that because it's like if I get hurt or my child gets hurt, my insurance covers first, and then what my insurance doesn't cover, this picks up. So, and we really, I had sent a follow-up email today too. We really are not required as a district to provide this, but the reasons to provide it are greater in my eyes. The peace of mind that it provides for families for the district protection legally, in case we have something large. It's just, it's already in place and set to go. Would save both legal costs, claim coverage costs, from that standpoint. So I would recommend that we renew our policy. And it would, the carrier would change to Heartland or Hartford Fire Insurance Company, but the same umbrella agency, first agency, they quote this out for us every year now. So Tony and I talked about that last year. We can request it every year.
Move to accept the bid.
Second.
Second, any other discussion?
So we shop this, right? It sounds like.
Yes.
Right, okay. And that, if I heard you right, that, that additional coverage is not really required, but it's more of a recommendation, right?
Correct. Yes.
And that just kind of to supplement the liability of the district?
Well, the whole policy itself it serves in that same function, but it's the level with which if there's a major accident, we didn't have as much coverage compared to the WIAA coverage. So, you know, if something major, would there be a major accident, major injury, this covers us to that same amount compared to, you know, just the same level comparison. So.
Any other discussion? All those in favor of accepting the renewal policy going with Hartford Insurance, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, food service bid is next, right? And I can just provide a quick update on that. Food service bid is you know, we had 2 companies respond to the food service bid, Aramark and Charles. Currently, I'm working with DPI to finalize our selection. So part of the process, and this is dated for May 1st, I have to take that sort of the main bid documents and say this is what the district is hoping to go to with this direction, and I have to get approval from DPI. And so DPI had several questions very much related to sort of related to our current operations. So right now, because we're operating under CEP but not providing breakfast in the classroom, we have a more significant loss compared to where we would normally be if we were offering breakfast in the classroom. Just because of some other discussion that we had in the past, we had talked to True Rivers. The superintendent was mentioning at the last superintendent's meeting here that they've offered breakfast in the classroom. It's what's called second chance breakfast at the secondary schools, and where they were running at a loss or running in the black because of that. So, you know, that's just an area where, because we are cost reimbursable, we just naturally get more back the more meals that we serve. And I think not only from the cost standpoint, the feedback and, you know, the feedback from teachers in the district has been that they really wanted to see that come back, and that it was a critical support. And so I asked with the True Rivers superintendent, I said, you know, has there been, you know, concern with academic interference at the secondary level specifically with offering that? And she said, absolutely not. So the trouble with where we're at with the bid is they're going to give us their decision on who we need to go with as a district. So we've had several discussions with them, but regardless of the direction that's provided, no matter which company we end up going with, we're going to have to really talk very critically about how we can operate more effectively for our food service program.
What is the breakfast program that the middle school and high school get? That's not what you're talking.
They have it just before school where
Correct.
they can go, if they can get there before school and
That's
time to
correct.
get it. Yes.
But there is no, like they used to have that first hour lunch or breakfast, that no longer is there. It's
Correct.
only if you get there early on.
Mhm. Correct. Yes. And more of the concern is just when I was during the school day, the access was provided equally to all, and some aren't able to get there or get there late, so that becomes a challenge. So
We don't have DPI's advice yet as to which program we should go through.
correct. If I
Okay.
have it by Thursday, I'll add it to the agenda so that we can get that on there. If
When does that contract have to be settled?
Well, it has to be in place by July 1 with DPI, and if there were to be a change, we would have a significant amount of work in a quick turnaround. So we would want to consider, if not by the special meeting, by the regular meeting of June would be
So right now, this committee can't act because we don't have a recommendation.
correct. We cannot act at this time.
And if you get the recommendation, then you're gonna put it on the agenda for the board? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Any questions regarding that? Yeah.
I have a comment, a concern within the organization right now with Chartwell's. I could read you an email if anybody.
just highlight.
I will. So Chartwell insists on constantly serving food that the students do not want to eat. For example, the high school implements global eats. This does not give a student a good way to try foods. It does give a good way, but unfortunately, there are very few of these dishes that the students will actually eat. One of these concepts that sound good in theory but falls flat when making this food. We're required to make a certain quantity. For example, they tell us to make 80, we throw 70 away. So obviously, they would like an opportunity to have chance with different. Another thing they said about management is very difficult to work with. Many of the decisions have led to low morale among the staff. So pretty much, we do have some issues kind of internally that maybe need to be looked at. That's all I'll say at this point.
For 6 months, I watched worked all 3 lunch hours. There's a lot of food wasted. I'm not sure it's Chartwell's fault. I'm not sure whose fault it is. There's a tremendous amount of food wasted by the kids because the lunch says you have to have this as your lunch. So you have to take a little of everything or whatever they serve you. They've got the huge buffet in the middle where the kids can go get as much as they want. So I would watch them load up on blueberries and strawberries and fruits, all very good stuff, and ignore the vegetable. When the vegetable comes on the plate that they have because of lunch, the vegetable gets tossed. There's a lot of food. Apples will get tossed, oranges get tossed. They won't eat them, but they have to have them as part of the lunch program.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that's a Chartwell's law. I'm sure it's a federal law. I'm not sure it's going to be Airmark's challenge. The same thing has to happen. If this is their lunch, they get it, whether they choose to eat it or not.
And it becomes a part of what qualifies as a reimbursable meal. So that's where the hard piece comes in there. And we've talked a little bit about the sharing, what's called sharing and no thank you table. So there are 2 primary options that we could put into place. And we've talked about them. I'm actually working with a teacher at Lincoln High School and Micah also, because they wanted to pilot it at Lincoln High School. And we also worked with Grow It Forward and the health department. So your sanitarian has to be involved in deciding how you can run that. So for example, it's like a sharing or no thank you table has to be heavily monitored. And you can't just put if you bring your casserole from home and you don't want it, you can't just put that on the table. Has to be all packaged foods. Apples can't go on there unless they wrap them all in saran wrap. So it has to be like anything that has edible skin can't go on there. So I've started to work on that, and my hope is to have a document and a procedure in place, a standard operating procedure, if you will, that is approved by the health department, so we can work on that. I know Chartwell's has worked to cut more of the fruits up, so, because sometimes they've noticed that has helped with less food waste.
The apple slices are all cut and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and so that, they've tried some ways to get it. I've heard some of the similar concerns that you have shared just regarding just other things, and it's good to know that with some of the menued items, I think there's ways that we could work with whoever our company is to get more student input.
I just want to, for the record, I want to make the point that if the DPI mandates something so that we get the federal government mandates something so we get reimbursement, doesn't mean it works in application, and this is an exact
Correct.
result of it. So that's why I was so adamant about the position I took about a year ago in this situation.
Is that a Chartwell's thing, or is that more related to CEP? Or would we be having that even if we were not in CEP?
It's
For the reimbursable meal?
Just what Keith was talking about with all the food waste.
Well, because there's gonna be a higher volume of students eating under CEP typically. And then, but that doesn't mean it's not exclusive to CEP that there would be some level of waste because they have to, in order for it to count as a reimbursable meal, whether you're under the free reduced paid or under CEP, they have to have a certain number of.
There has to be
Yeah.
there has to be a food object in the pyramid. There has to be one of the food pyramid objects on that plate.
Sure.
So vegetables part of the pyramid. I'm not eating broccoli today. I'm not eating these peas and I'm not gonna, so they throw it, but it has to be served.
When they come in line.
Yeah,
So that happens regardless of what program you use.
Correct.
It gets federally reimbursed.
Yeah.
So it's federally mandated food that people choose not to eat, then becomes waste. And then now the waste is the result.
Yeah, there's gotta be a way to do that better.
well, if,
Get
in the
Band-Aids
investigation
on
of these, if we can allow more
Yeah.
flexibility, that would be a perfect question.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna bring this back, your update
Yes.
to the board then?
Yes, correct.
No action can be taken on that then? Lighting bid,
Okay. Go
We've got-
ahead.
We asked three people to bid, and we've got their bids in. Basically, it's 80,000, 100,000, 120,000. But we're not clear on all of the, some of the things that were requested for the exterior, and that was their option, what to present. So John Burgett's going to be talking to these guys this week and getting it specified, what exactly are you offering to us? You know, the $80,000 bid may not be offering us what we need on the exterior. It was specified on the interior, replacement of fixtures and that, but the exterior was up, their option to relight the outside, give us more light because it's dark out there. So we need to hash this out yet. We need to talk to them and get more clarification on the bids.
okay, so no recommendation at this point,
No,
just
not yet.
information?
We're hoping to have it put up by Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Budget updates?
Okay, budget amendments, those were posted in board book. Those are just, trying to do 3 times a year. So February, May, and then end the budget year. And just moving, or just suggesting that these are, they not get attached.
They weren't there.
You can't attach something that you can't view, so I
Right.
apologize about that. So we can save that to a June finance meeting. That's okay. So we will table that and move on. Just briefly wanted to. Okay, Wise Data Finance, so I'll just talk briefly about these items. So just was gonna share, Wise Data Finance is something, we're gonna have an audit report that's ready for next week if we're ready, just for 2022-23, which is of course much, much later than we normally had that. We finished the audit late March for a variety of reasons. Part of it was just the moving between the different systems caused several delays, and then also Wise Data Finance. So just wanted to share that with now what we have with Skyward and really any of the systems in the state of Wisconsin feed directly to DPI, so they're able to check and cross-check all of the information. We send information daily from Skyward to DPI, and then we can see for errors and that. What Wisconsin has done with that system is move to that to help ensure that districts are reporting equally on all things, to make sure ledgers are reflecting consistently. So that's just kind of an improvement. So you'll hear some talk about that when we have the audit update, and it's a really good thing. It took a lot to work through some of the bugs with that between the systems, but it's a nice technology that we have. And then also I can share there's with our Baird analytics, we have some different reporting that we're looking at with that as well, just to bring.
So this is just a different reporting system, different.
Yeah.
It's not a different accounting system, it's just a different reporting system.
No, this is just, the Wise Data Finance is simply, it just pulls everything from our financial system to the state,
Okay,
so.
there's no action on that anyway.
Correct. I'm not sure where lines got crossed, and I apologize for that. There should have been attachments for these, so I will get them to, we'll just have to table some of these items to a finance committee in June. I'll just move on to the Fund 46 plan. What we're gonna wanna do as a district is approve a new 10-year plan for Fund 46. Okay, so we're at a kind of a weird spot where CISA 10 has helped us with the facility audit, and we have, a lot of information to digest. And a Fund 46 10-year plan offers a way, when approved, for us to spend that money on any of the items approved in that 10-year plan. Okay, so we are well aware that we need to sit down with that plan and prioritize and do all the fancy things with it and make sure that we start making substantial focused progress on that. The reason we want to approve a plan before we have those plans fully in place is because we have other projects taking place this summer that we want to use Fund 46 funds for. And simply if they're listed in the plan that's approved, we can use the funds. And so,
Where is that plan?
it was supposed to be attached to right here. It includes the facility audit, includes another addendum sheet on the back that says district furniture, including but not limited to like tables, chairs, desks, that kind of stuff, and then the technology project. So we're gonna have to bring that back since something.
Yeah, I don't have an attachments
Yeah,
either.
we really need to start talking about that.
Yeah, and we need to prioritize more of it, but like the fact of the matter is, like for the technology systems, we didn't have the phones and the PAs listed specifically. We had actually had technology projects, but those are on the docket being replaced this summer. So like, we need to have that approved in order to fund it through our Fund 46 funds. And so it's important, though we, don't have a step 1, 2, 3, 4, exactly sequential plan finalized with the raw data from the audit, that we approve something even temporarily in order to move forward.
So Fund 46,
Mhm.
and excuse my lack of knowledge on this, but
No.
Fund 46 was developed with CISA 10 for these projects that we hope to start working on.
Well, Fund 46 is really the long-term capital improvements trust. So what happens at the end of a fiscal year and part of our operational referendum plan is you can take money from Fund 10 and you transfer it into Fund 46, and you're aided on it in the year that you spend it.
But it has to be in Fund 10 to transfer.
Correct.
Okay.
And once it's in 46, you can only spend it on items identified in the plan.
Approved plan.
Approved plan by the board. And we don't have to file that with DPI. We approve it at the board level, keep it on file. When we have the audit, it becomes one of our PBC items. And
Has that happened? Is that plan there?
we do have a plan, but it's a very high-level plan. It was before we had this more detailed plan. So that's where,
So where's this
Getting-
detailed plan?
well, a detailed plan would include the CISA 10 facilities audit, and then we have an addendum attached to that lists the technology projects and the district furniture. So and I can pull it up here. I'm not sure.
No, like I
But
said,
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know those plans.
Yeah, I think we really gotta get that going soon, right? I mean, you were saying like last month we needed to do it yesterday, right? Here we are a month later, we're still not there, so.
Well, and it's gonna, we've narrowed things down in that advisory committee quite a bit. It seems like we make some progress every meeting. And it's kind of a weird ask because we're in the early stages of making major plans regarding all of this. But having something on file that you could write on a napkin roofs, and that could be your 10-year plan, and you could spend money on anything roof related. So I'm not trying to make it broad brush and make it too simple, but we need to actively have something like a working document that reflects projects that we have slated.
Yeah, my suggestion is that we should make it probably an agenda, and this would probably be like the only thing on our agenda, would just be to talk through that, go through the first 2 years of priority projects and identify what we gotta do
Mhm.
and then how we're gonna fund it, because we gotta, more than likely, obviously I'm just my opinion, but I think it's probably gonna be that short-term borrowing, near term, just to get some of these projects underway. And the more time they have, the better, right, for planning and.
Yes.
But correct me if I'm wrong, we can't do any short-term borrowing, if I remember correctly, until we know the full expenditures of what this district is gonna pay. We have to have a full budget, what our expenditures are,
Yeah.
before you can borrow on that, and we're not close to that.
Well, I want to have a better grasp on the final compensation pieces, like just for the short term right now, to know what we'd be comfortable taking on as a debt payment. For the scope of like this agenda item, and I apologize, because I had this set and I'm not sure what happened, that it didn't get attached, but, it's kind of a technical piece for like this summer. We're already really set with what we have on file to complete the PA in that kind of a system, but let's say, and I think we had LED lighting in there, but it just would capture more of, it would give us a little more wiggle room to use Fund 46 funds for some of the projects if we would need to. So if for what you're talking about in the scope of like before summer starts, we're not gonna have time to put together what you're thinking about, the detailed level of a fund or a 10-year plan.
Well, I don't think we need to do a 10-year, I mean, eventually we gotta do 10 years, but we gotta do a 2-year plan, right? We gotta do
We're trying to work on that, but like anything that's identified, that the audit had things in there that said 1 to 2 years, in 5 years, 10 years. So that's where, we can symbolically use anything in that plan, even to get us started on the things that we can take care of that are low hanging fruit.
And you're talking Fund $46, when you
Correct.
say that, and is that what the million or so dollars that was gonna fund the owner's rep contract is coming from Fund 46?
No, that's mainly operational funds, but this is other dollars that we could identify for projects, that are within that, in
Is
that
it-
funding range. And it's mainly the technology projects, and JFK
This
were
is
slated
small
to be.
amounts, right?
Mhm,
Yeah.
Correct. And we would be okay waiting for, I wish that was on here.
Yeah, you have a question?
So, this is gonna be kind of backwards on how I speak, but, what's the fund balance in 46 right now?
It is, it's $2.6 million the last time.
So my suggestion, this is a suggestion at this point, is not gonna make a motion yet, but I'm saying we should kind of free up some of that money by transferring or giving it a sunset of 6 months to give the facility audit as a reference, and then giving that department the ability to use some of those funds to do those projects this summer. So it would kind of come into a form, like what you're saying, what you actually need, because we're kind of behind it already, because essentially they're here saying, hey, we have the projects lined up, they've already kind of done the work to get it ready. We need to transfer the ownership of Fund 46 so that they can use that fund, but they need the authorization by saying it's in the scope of the CISA 10 report. So we need to transfer that by, so what we could say is, I'd like to make a motion that we approve infrastructural improvements from the audit, CISA 10 audit, for a term no more than 6 months.
What are the projects?
Well, I think we need to, Mike and his team and whoever else in the district, I would like to see a plan, these are the priority projects that we've
Absolutely,
identified
and
in
the
the next
cost.
2
Boom,
years.
boom, boom, boom.
And here's what we need, and then Keith, to your point earlier, unless I'm not remembering it right, Angela, I believe we had room in the budget to pay up to $1 million a year in debt repayment, correct?
Correct. I gotta add some things in about Fund 46, and I'm sorry that this is getting sort of tangled. So our network switches, modernization, wireless and hardwired upgrades was over close to $1 million of that. Like really most all of that money in Fund 46 is all spoken for, short of some maybe $400,000, give or take. Okay, the current balance right now in LGIP is just over $3 million. So because we continue to earn interest on that, so we did pretty well. It's getting 5.38% interest according to the April statement. So that's gone up, you know, a couple $100,000 in the last couple of months, which is good. So when we communicated the referendum, it's very, very important to remember and just help those that are newer to this too, that we said $400,000 would be moved from the operational budget annually to be put into Fund 46 to set aside for large capital technology projects, okay? So part of that document that if you would have maybe seen was, it's gonna have the facility audit, it's a cover, so it's Fund 46 plan. The audit, then it has a list on one page of the technology product or projects that Heartland works with Jessica Dupre, our technology director, on to plan to make sure that we, you know, are able to get through and keep our network up to date. I mean, those are critical. We've had at times with budgetarily where we've not set aside that money, and then buildings and grounds loses like $1 million all of a sudden because we have to work on network modernization. So the idea, and that can be about $2.5 million over a 5-year span. So the idea is to move that $400,000 in there over 5 years, and we're, you know, have that roughly $2 million, you know, set. So we communicated that very carefully with the taxpayers and need to hold to that. And then,
So where is this plan? I mean, where you said we have this 400 they have to move over the next 5 years. When we move that 400, what is this $400,000 gonna go for?
so
As
Jessica,
Tony said, to give the okay to spend money, what are we spending it on and how much of these
Yeah.
projects cost?
and you would see it in that document, that's why we have to table this item for right now. But Jessica does have a very detailed plan, and I can have her come and speak to it too when we bring it back. That talks about all of the projects that go over a span of 5 years. Also, cameras for schools, you know, all of that.
Okay, I think that's good. 'Cause
So I
I need
apologize,
to see that.
Yeah, and, yeah.
And to see how much money is available.
And
Yeah.
if I can make a suggestion, I would, at least for the initial discussions, I think we need to narrow that scope to the first 2 years. Because it seemed like there were some like serious safety issues that were uncovered from that audit. And I think we need to prioritize, unless you guys disagree, I think we need to prioritize anything related to that. And further, you know, if we can get back on that long-term plan, we need to start having those discussions with, you know, what do our buildings look like in the next 5 to 10 years, right? Because that's all stuff that we're gonna have to take into account as we're picking which projects to prioritize, what types of investments we're gonna make, so on and so forth. If our building footprint changes to reflect, you know, the declining enrollment that we've seen, you know, that's all part of the equation that we need to hash through. And I think we need to really start making that the focal point of these meetings, unless you guys disagree.
No, I don't disagree. And I think like Matt and I and a couple other people on the way out of the last board meeting, there seems to be a lot of committees floating around. I'm not sure what all these committees do and the title for all these committees, because I heard that there was one committee that the superintendent called, and all of a sudden there's this document flying out there that we're gonna close the school and this is priorities out there. And I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, this cannot get out. We will have mass mutiny if any of these things get out there. So what committee is responsible to what, and what committee?
Yeah.
We need some general consensus, because I am not gonna support anything that we're not all in line with, we don't understand, this is the cost, this is when it's gonna come, and this is what we have to do. I don't think we can afford all these little quips, and we're gonna close this school and we're gonna move that school, because we have seen no plans. And before I okay anything, it's gonna have to come out of the superintendent's office. We move this attendance, we can do this with this grade, numerous plans that we can take a look at is what's gonna save our school district. Yes, sir.
What you have there, what I was hoping this committee could be for us.
I saw that, that's why I brought it up.
Good, thank you. The committee that you're speaking of, we're calling it the Internal Facilities Planning Advisory Committee. its goal is to try to have these discussions that you were just mentioning somewhat under wraps. I was hoping to feed information to this group to have it not explode. What your sheets have don't mention closing any schools. That's what came out of our second facilities planning committee, was that me and Katie thought Matson and Jackson could go. I was thinking one or the other without adding additional square footage. Our main recommendation, and now I'm talking capital referendum, is to close the 2 middle schools and build one, because you only need one. But
I hope that's not out in the public.
no, the spreadsheet, and I have, yes, definitely, what I've taken from what you have is all of their thoughts and consensus from last Thursday and put it into a new set of spreadsheets. Yes, sir. But what we have here, basically, they landed on.
Yeah, there's something, I'm not even sure what, I'm not even sure what this committee is
And we're,
called.
you know, okay, and we are recording this meeting and we'll put it on board, typically. Can I wrap up the Fund 46?
Yeah, that's
Just
Yes.
From a technical standpoint, I'm not trying, I think I confused things, and I didn't mean to, I didn't intend for that at all. Like, you know, when you make decisions as a Board of Education regarding projects and stuff, that is ultimately the board's decision. And then we have funding flexibility between your general operational funds and sometimes to use at Fund 46. You can just be more agile moving between them when you have a more updated plan on file. So, and I will get that I'll add it next time we have a committee meeting or for a separate meeting and help with that. And that's, until we do that, we can't really make any change on it. So I apologize about that.
Thank you.
And then, yeah, so I'm done with that.
All right, can we move along, please?
Sure.
Next time.
I don't know that this facilities is on here, so I think that we
It's-
will have
yeah.
to, it's not. I think we will have to go to the borrowing. Go ahead, Matt, you have a
Yeah.
question?
No question, there's an information, so do you have the information about borrowing?
Yeah, I just, wanted to just reiterate that we continue to look at borrowing options. I think one thing we have to look very carefully at is understanding the scope of some preliminary thoughts coming out of the visioning committee. We're just really looking at vision and options right now. We're keeping it basic and not specific to a certain plan with certain buildings at this point. We want to keep it very, we're weighing several different options that could have a variety of implications. We're looking at borrowing that could be done through the board, which would be Fund 38, and that the board would be able to decide on that. And we have, but the main risk factor that we need to consider is that if we're borrowing out of operational funds, and we only know that our operational referendum lasts so long, if we're borrowing, let's say, 10 years as an example, and we only have an operational referendum for 4 years, let's say we take on $1 million debt payment. If we take on, if referendum doesn't pass, we still have that debt payment. That means you have to cut $1 million more. So it's a heavy consideration not to be taken lightly. Another consideration is, we could consider some other approaches to borrowing and like a very, very small limited referendum instead of a huge one. So, because we're looking at all different ranges of borrowing amounts that would include referendums and would not, or just the internal borrowing capacity we have as a board.
So thresholds for borrowing without a referendum are how many million?
15 to 20, right?
It's more like without a referendum, we would be with $1 million, you wanna think about what your payment's gonna be. So like I would say around $1 million would get us about 12 million. And the challenging part is the amount of even short-term 1 to 2 year needs that we have as a district are pretty expansive, and 12 million would make progress on it, but it probably wouldn't get us to where we'd want to truly be to to really get the ball rolling.
So with that leads me to this again, because these buildings in the red, to borrow $12 million, and they're not gonna be around in 5, 6, 10, 15, 20 years, why are we doing that? Again, I'll say, until we know all of our options, what we can do, moving grades, moving neighborhoods, supporting schools, we're not gonna get anything. Like, it's not gonna go. And if we have to support a referendum to borrow money, and the referendum fails, we still have to pay that money.
Yes. Well, if we, yes, for an operational
Yeah,
referendum, yeah. The benefit to seeking Fund 39 borrowing, which is referendum approved borrowing, is that it secures that under a separate levy. So right now, anything under Fund 10, 41, or 38, 41's another type of capital improvements, that's built into your general revenue limit authority, okay, in your regular tax levy. If you do Fund 39, for example, that's all referendum approved debt. So that adds on top of, so we have the referendum or the operational funds right now, that's one layer. And then most districts have Fund 39 borrowing. So that could be, it depends upon the district. It could be that it's $1 above whatever their mill rate is their Fund 39 levy. It could be 50 cents, could be 20 cents, could be $3. It all depends. Some districts will have Fund 80, which is community service as well. That's another, small amount on there. So the difference, there's a difference in optics and spirit though too, when you have, like, the board could take action and then the board is gonna carry the weight of the decision. And the community buy-in could be strong to that decision, it could be weak. If you go to Fund 39 borrowing and you take it to referendum, even if it's a smaller amount or a larger amount, the community does have the voice, and a lot of times one could reason it has more buy-in to the decision because they were able to speak. So that's something to consider.
I think at this point, just looking at the climate, right? Specifically as it relates to referendums, and I feel there's this sense of fatigue that's out there by a lot of taxpayers, so. I mean, I really don't know if now is the right time. We can certainly start talking about it, eventually we'll have to do that, but I think in the near term, I think the prudent move would be to look at an option that's not gonna burden taxpayers more than they already are, at least on their tax bills short term, right? And I think that near-term borrowing option's an attractive way for us to do that, because we can still identify and address priority projects. And if we can keep the district focused on achievement and show the public, hey, we're on the right track, this isn't just a mirage, things are actually getting better. I think that's gonna make the case for us in the long run for what we really need eventually is gonna be that larger capital referendum. So that's just my 2 cents on it, and I think that's the route that we should take now is we gotta give taxpayers a break and just, work on developing a long-term plan, and kind of bet that we're gonna win, right? That's obviously the plan here is to win, but we gotta deliver on the other end of it, right? With everything else, with the achievement and the scores going up. And I believe if we can do that successfully and then give the taxpayers a reprieve near term, I think that's gonna give us the best probability of landing that capital referendum.
But we're gonna have to borrow to do your projects that you wanna do this summer, correct?
No.
Or is that's in 46, that's already taken care of?
Yes.
Okay.
We can, within our operational capacity, we can support the work, and we've planned within that 1.5. 500,000 is going towards some technology, additional ones with cameras at Lincoln.
Okay, so you're gonna get that to us. What everything is, it's gonna be done this summer and a cost to it. Okay,
Correct, yes.
okay.
This summer's pretty much already
Right.
kind of booked, right? I mean, you
Yeah.
can't do much
We're
more
doing
now.
this lighting project. One of our main goals was to try to get our an architect on board so we could start to plan some of this stuff. Keith, the one thing I wanted to say is any of the red schools that you see there, none of those funds would be put into any of those schools.
Okay.
It's just
What do you need to get this lighting project going?
nothing.
Nothing. It's,
We
it's,
Maybe we
it's
need to
there.
approve of the bid.
We will get you good information by Thursday. We're intending to get that by noon so you can actually vote on it Tuesday.
And by the next board meeting, we could approve you to start working on
Yeah,
that.
but that's,
Okay.
And really like the camera work that we're talking about, we can do that without formally approving that Fund 46.
Well, still an expenditure,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we will approve it.
Yes. Correct.
My opinion just was kind of close to Tony's about how, you know, we need to build consensus with the community. And I don't believe they're gonna support anything until we start showing our gains, showing our returns, just like we did on the reading. I mean, we need to prove to the community that we're going to be a destination. Otherwise, it's the same old story saying we need money. And I just don't believe people are gonna support it. I, for one, won't support it if it continues this way without us not having a clear path. Or, you know, it's just not gonna work. They're too worn down already.
Any other discussion? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
if I could, just since I handed this out to you guys, like a major theme, I guess, from what the planning committee came up with to this spreadsheet. They basically landed on options one or two. I threw in other options that I had, so you have different financial pieces. But the goal of those options 1 and 2, or the direction, I guess, was that they want to try to shore up the elementary school picture as much as possible with what we've been calling non-referendum borrowing options. And that was mainly investing in Jefferson staying home Monroe and then keeping Franklin and Lincoln alive. Leaving the other schools for other bigger funding mechanisms.
So you're saying, from the outside in, so the yellow and the reds, they wouldn't be getting the funding, just focusing on green.
Trying to
Blue
turn the.
and
And those are the ones that they're recommending are most likely the long-term viable.
Yep.
villages.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, no, and I don't disagree with the thought, right? And I think that's what we need to start having those, you know, we need to start bringing this more, to Keith's point, you know, into the public eye, just to have these thoughtful conversations and talk through. And I think Keith brought up a lot of good points, right? We got to look at, you know, besides just the buildings end of it, we got to look at how is this going to affect, you know, districts and where kids end up going, or all, you know, all the variables that go into it. But it's
You
all.
and I both know, you start messing with Jackson School District and you start telling those parents that they're gonna move to a different location with no concrete plan, no specificity, why you're doing it, why we have to do it, you're just gonna move. That's worse than a root canal for a school district, is moving attendance areas. It's horrible. I've been through it many times. It's the worst thing you can do is move those attendance areas without telling mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and aunt and uncles why we have to do it.
At least 10 reasons why you have to do it.
Huh?
The problem is that where this is a public meeting right now, again, at the same time, we need to have our plan. That's why my thing I've learned most about this whole process is when you find a problem, you have to figure out the solution before you present it to the board. And if in a managerial state, that the managers kind of just gotta give us the solutions before they tell, and then we don't know the problems. So unfortunately, we've kind of uncovered that, hey, there's a lot of problems, but now we need solutions before we get the problems out. And unfortunately, we've been getting the problems out to the public before
That's
the
correct.
managerial state's been able to give us the solutions. So that's why the community needs to bear with the whole process of us being transparent, because that's true transparency to have this. And unfortunately, that's the reality we live in now. And like I said, we can't have it get weaponized.
No,
And unfortunately, it will get weaponized, but hopefully we can hold it to a minimum.
correct.
Is there any direct homework this board would be?
No, because I think you've done a tremendous job. I think what now has to come, as Matt said, has to come from inside and present to the board numerous alternatives as to how this is gonna work. Attendance area, school closings, school work, this one gets it. If we move a couple of blocks, this is gonna take a fifth grade out so we can get rid of Jackson because the fifth grade and the fourth grade are really small and we can move them to this. We need to have that logistical information presented numerous ways so that the board can look like option A, B, C. A is gonna cost us this much, B is gonna close this school at this due, C is gonna give us one middle school, da, 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 da.
So nuts and bolts to you is we need to have the monetary advantages and disadvantages of maneuvering the facilities. That's a good directive to be able to answer those questions 5 different ways, depending on where we need to move. Is that a good enough point to you?
I think they, they might need a little bit more collaboration with other resources, right? I don't know if you're privy to that information, right? I mean, I think you did a job telling us, hey, here's the buildings that are worth investing in, right? It's basically the way I read this, and like the ones,
Yes.
right? So that's part of the equation, right?
And then there's a culture.
And then the other part of the equation is kind of what, culture, as you just mentioned, and what Keith was alluding to, is just how do we marry these, the economics of this, right? Which is really kind of the driving force, right? And then we gotta find out how do we,
That wouldn't be in his purview though.
right, exactly. That's why I'm saying we're gonna need to
Use his data.
a district resource,
Redistricting study.
right, yeah, like I'm not sure what would go into that, but I think there's a lot of moving parts here that we have to bring together to.
Could we make a directive to the superintendent office?
Absolutely,
So
we can make anything we want.
So I think that would be a good idea to
I think
kind of
that could be-
put on him
Yeah.
in his departments.
There's so many programs out there that we used in other districts I was at, and even when we moved from the elementary to the true middle school concept. You bring in your bus company, we talk to the real estate company, they tell you where the population is moving, they know the shifts, what the apartment complexes are, the apartment complexes bringing in childbearing kids or non-childbearing kids. Who's moved into what districts? So you move 3 blocks over in Jackson. Well, you take out how many fifth graders, how many sixth graders? Where do they go? What does that population do to Stangel? What does that population do to Jefferson? What does that population do to? There are programs that the bus company uses every year to set up routes. The Census Bureau there's a program that they have that we tapped 6 years ago. Where is the population shift? It's there, but it has to be presented. And when we got that information, you can say, Jackson, you're an old building, you're a lot of work. If we move the third graders in this neighborhood and the fourth graders in this neighborhood, and we move you to back, and the fifth graders go to a true middle school, we don't need you. Mom and Dad, here's the program, here's what we can do. But that stuff, that specificity has to come. And it is the superintendent's job to give us that. Numerous options, numerous programs, so that you can take a look at it, this committee can take a look at it, and we can bring it to the board. But I agree, the immediacy is to help you in this short term, however that works.
So I just made up a term, but what if we ask them to give us an attendance cultural audit?
Attendance cultural.
I mean, that's what I'm summarizing what you said. You said, we need an attendance audit of the district and.
We need an attendance, school district attendance area audit
Okay, yeah.
and a projected 5-year study. And we need options, 3 to 4 to 5 options of what each grade level station would mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the federal government and the state do those all the time. The state just finished their last 3-year
Yeah,
casting of what they expect for enrollment for cities, towns, villages, rural areas. The federal government does it every 10 years right after the census, and they send all that information out. It's all there.
So we need a report done to the general board or to the finance committee to make a decision. So I don't know when you can take over now, but I don't know where we would make that up with this.
I think that we can make it a board
directive?
goal.
Okay.
we can, no, I think that would definitely be a priority goal. And I would, basically ask Jim, to work and come up with a plan to, make this a reality, right? What does that
Or
look like?
to show us how that's gonna work.
Right, yeah, no, give us the yellow brick road, right?
There will
And it
be-
is going to require moving attendance areas, and it's going to require moving schools or grade levels. Well, give us that plan. I think you're absolutely correct.
Is there anything that's not in your purview? Like I just said, the attendance area? Do you think that's a
Yeah.
part of your, you want to take that on, please?
Well,
Yeah.
we have several different resources and ways we can decide as a district
Yeah.
who we get it from. You know, it's not just through CISA 10. I have 10-year enrollment projections already put together, you know what I mean? That's something, and then, you know, you're only going 5 years old. I mean, some kids aren't even born. We're gonna be entering, of course, 10 years from now, but, and we can work with CISA 10 to see what our options are. Baird would provide, I mean, there's a couple different things that go into this, the financial piece as well, the different options there, so.
I'm just asking, when can we get a report, essentially? And I'm not asking you, I'm saying, can we make a directive to pass it to the full board?
Got it, yeah.
And I don't know how we do that with this agenda. Unless it can just be a
This
directive
was
and then
meant to
you can
just,
pass it.
we're looking at borrowing options. We didn't really mean to dig any deeper actually at this point, but we're good.
I think you're very clear on what we'll do at the next board meeting when this comes on the agenda is we're gonna have to get some specificity to these plans that are coming from this other committee as options. So let's see how it plays out.
Okay, so no directive at this point, we
Right.
can't really do it.
Yeah.
I should have asked sort of, no, we got Mr. President's here.
He asked for things that we need. Can I point out one more thing that will really help us?
Yes, sir.
At least it would help me. I think it would help the full board. We need to understand what we're really buying.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, what the projects are is helpful. What those projects mean for longevity of the building are fundamental for whether or not it's worth spending the money. An excellent example, you don't live around here, so you may not be aware of it. There's a lot of talk going on about the county courthouse.
Yeah.
And the whole point on the county courthouse that they're looking at is, it's been around for 100 years. What we're looking at is to cover the next 100 years. Now, if you say, let me pick a school that we don't have. So Roosevelt School needs $28 million worth of work, but it's only gonna get us 15 more years. I can tell you, the board isn't gonna spend $28 million for 15 years. That's a losing proposition. So an understanding of not just what the work is, but what the work is buying. Now, I know in a perfect world, everything we're doing would buy us the next 100 years.
Yeah.
But this isn't a perfect world, so you understand what?
I do.
Okay.
And also
that's
adding
what
to
this
that,
is set up to do.
if we move 3 attendance blocks, we spend $28 million on a school, and in 3 years to 5 years, we aren't gonna need that school. Why did we spend $28 or $28 million to remodel it?
I've heard just that comment and a comment. Is it okay for me to talk right now?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. And a comment when you guys were earlier talking that says you need to take the next step in a space needs analysis.
My language is a lot better than that.
The elementary picture, you know, I've been through with these companies many times. The elementary picture is really not rocket science, and I've been trying to lay that out for Lee and Katie and so forth. You have X number of classrooms and you have X number of kids, and those kids continue to go in a downward direction. So we already have a decent picture of the number of elementary classrooms we need. It gets more difficult at the middle school and high school level because you have a seat utilization because they're shifting around, but it's all information we can get. That's me again, just sticking to the facilities piece, not the redistricting piece, not the remapping, and which is another piece of that. But yes, what you asked for, I could tell you right now, but that's not the way this is set up to, and I need to.
Yeah, and I don't mean for now, I mean in the
Okay, sounds
future,
good.
so we have a good understanding.
Any other questions, comments about this, Mike? Oh, awesome, thank you very much, thank you.
We're on the same
Everybody-
page.
I'm sure everybody's thinking the same way, I'm positive of that.
Our last agenda item, policy 3620 purchasing. And it goes along with the CISA 6 contract. And I'm the one that put this on the agenda, so I'll bring it up. I brought it up at the board meeting when we got this CISA 6 contract. Or when I found out that the CISA 6 contract for web page design and communications. Here's what bothered me a little bit. It's $108,000. Jim signed a contract in February for $97,500. April 18, another DocuSign contract for $108,000 for those services. Did not go to the board. That policy, 6320, says that anything over $100,000, thank you very much. Thanks, Mike. Anything over $100,000 has to be approved by the board. That's secondary to my concern. My concern is that we're spending $108,000 to a CISA 6. And CISA 6, I know Jim said we're getting 100% of the time, but anytime you subcontract with another agency, you're not getting 100% of her time because she is also paying services to her entire CISA. So $108,000, I solely and truly believe that we could purchase our own service in this district that can spend all of her time exemplifying the great things that are being done. For example, we went to the Youth Apprenticeship Awards meeting the other night. Come to find out that Lincoln is one of the oldest youth apprenticeship programs. We have the highest numbers in the state. Great awards were given out. We have more contracted services and support, but there was no CISA 6 representative at that meeting to exonerate our honors. If we employed our own person in this district to sell this district, to promote this district, I think $108,000 is a pretty good contract, and we probably could do it a lot less. So when you talk about services of $4,000 to $5,000 for Xerox company, this could save a lot more than that if we brought that services to home and employ our own people in Manitowoc rather than subcontracting out. Besides that, I thoroughly believe, I don't even think it's a legal binding contract, which was not approved by the board. There's my case. I truly believe that, and I'm not a contract lawyer. I don't know how that would work. It has been signed. I don't know the contract law well enough to know that we can get out of it, but I truly believe for that amount of money and less of that amount of money, we could have tremendous services in a purchase and have our own employee in this district that could sell this district in all regards. So that's my.
So do we know, how many hours are we getting out of that person? Is that?
I do not know that.
Yeah, I think we would need a more thorough.
It's not 100%, Tony. She works for another district. So you know that. It's not 100%.
Right. Well, I'd just be curious. I mean,
Yeah.
so we at least have the facts and then, and I'm not, opposed at all to what you're suggesting, especially if it shakes out better financially for us. And I don't have all the details on, what, when Jim made the hire, right, or whatever, he's making decisions.
It was April 18th.
Yeah, so, I mean.
And I
it's
checked
like
on Lori. It was not a board approved. There was no
Yeah.
agenda item for the board.
I think we should do, or at least an assessment, like what are the alternatives, right? Because if we can get someone full-time, and if that cost is the same or less even, then, that's probably not a bad idea if we need that position long-term. But that's the other question is, do we need that position long-term or is it just?
Or do we need a full-time? Could it be a part-time,
Yeah.
What,
We're-
oh,
Go ahead, no.
Know what the going rate for someone for communications, a professional, locally? I have to, we could easily do some research on that with local districts, what they pay for someone in such a position. You're always looking at about $30,000 for benefits. And I did just want to clarify that the 97.5 contract was a revision to the current year's contract, because that was originally 129.1. Realized it wasn't full-time, and that the services had not been as extensive as they were originally planned. And so that's why the 97.5 contract came into play.
Okay, that's great. So can I speak now? So I think the spirit of what you're saying, I'm right on 100% aligned with you that, you know, we need to dive into that stuff. But in the rebuttal, we're saving more than the past. So I do like that it's an improvement. However, if we can have Mike analyze it and if our return can be better, because truthfully, in my 2 years, I think that we could have done a lot better on marketing. So I agree, and I'm not no hit on them because, wow.
It
That's
is.
not, it is a little, however, it's like, you know, what are we getting as a return on that?
Correct.
So we in the defense of Jim, we saved money from the previous,
Well.
No, you
yes,
said
it's
120
not-
because now it's
well,
108.
The current year contract was going to be 129.1 originally, I believe,
Okay.
129 something. Then it was revised because the services even to date at a certain point weren't full-time and that was recognized, so that was revised. Previous years, I'm gonna say last year, we spent around 98,000, but then before that historically, because we've been with the same person for a while, we would spend between $30,000 and $40,000 annually. And that would include like some of the major publications, like the connections that we had, referendum supports.
yeah, I wanted to
the-
talk about the referendum was thrown in there last year, so that would obviously put the price up higher. But yeah, I'm in line with you 100% of understanding that, hey, we need to know where we're at and can we get a better return internally, as long as we kind of outweigh the long-term costs. But part-time, I think, would be the cat's meow. If we could get that, because then we wouldn't be paying that 30,000 in benefits or the pension eventually, so.
And I'm not opposed, I think you're absolutely right, I'm not opposed to going part-time, because maybe we're only getting part-time services here, and she's not even sitting in our
Because it's
district.
probably not every day there needs to be
Correct.
work done, which that's why it's feast or famine. So
Right.
obviously the rate is gonna be higher for a subcontract company, but it's gonna get done. But if we have it internally, well, that person's gonna have to be directed to do other things when they're not, you know, unless it's part-time. As long as we're getting that return and we get that mark, but at least then we could hold it accountable more so. But I like the idea. I think we should be doing an audit or some sort of assessment. But I bet if we asked Jim, how was that process during the referendum, I bet he would say that he had what he needed when he needed it. Maybe you could vouch for that during that process as well, because you were highly involved in that too. It just, we need to continue to explore that. And then your 108,000 threshold, I think that's understandable as well. Maybe we need to be a more fine-tooth comb about where our contracts are going and if we're hitting that threshold of $100,000.
Yeah,
Yeah, I will tell you that years ago, we had somebody internally that did this.
Yeah, probably.
And they were going out to all the schools
Everything.
all the time, seeing what was going on and saying, now this is something we should let everybody know about. They'd get in touch with the paper, see if they were interested. When the internet started to become the real thing, we're putting our own stuff on the internet about this stuff too. So I am absolutely in the same camp as all y'all that, one, if we can do it internally for less money, we're crazy not to do it that way, but it's worth taking a look at to see what we're really looking at. And we have excellent models right here in town that can help us. The library has several people who do marketing. You know, since you're not really selling anything at a library, calling it marketing is a tough
Yeah.
thing to do. I believe they use 2 part-time people, but you could still get a feel of, you know, for what they're getting done there. But, you know, there are comparables out for us. So.
And this is macro plan, but I mean, obviously, in the next 5 years, I think shoring up that department is pivotal in the success of the district.
Right,
So-
getting
so
people.
At the same time, it's gotta be the right fit.
well, we have Lee Tennis's secretary that he brought over from Lincoln High School, ran the marketing for Sea Haver News. She's right here in this building. Isn't she somebody we could take a look at? I mean, she was the marketing manager and the media specialist for Sea Haver News, and can put a pamphlet together probably better than anybody I've ever seen in Manitowoc County. And she's right here in this district.
So internally, we can do it without creating a
Well,
position.
I didn't say that. Give her 50,000. I'm just saying, there are people in that we can do. Now, the issue is, this lady in CESA is 6. Again, without board approval, starts July 1. I don't know contract law. I don't know, do we say, we're gonna back off on this because it has already been signed? I don't know
Is
that,
it a
ladies and
one-year
gentlemen. Huh? 1-year contract.
Well, we can definitely go to our council and also talk to.
We can check that out. So there's your assignment to check
Yep,
that out.
Yep, I will do
Okay.
that, yep.
So the contract was over 6 figures, correct?
Correct.
Where's that? And per policy, it should have been brought to the board.
The challenging part with our policy, and this is just, Keith and I had some discussions. I talked to Ken about it 2 years ago when Colin and I had some discussions, and our purchasing policy could use some updates.
We can do that at another time though, yes, but.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. And we can make it's not clear all the time whether it's tangible items and contracts with whether it does say contract projects will be subject to competitive bid.
That's over $3,000.
For $100,000 and then.
It has to be board approved.
But the competitive, what's challenging is like, I did a competitive bid for the copiers, and that is doing a formal RFP for that. We wouldn't do that for we have a lot of contracts that we go through for like even subscription licenses for just various things in the district where I don't wanna say those are a daily thing, but they're fairly regular, small scope amount. So that's where more clearly defining to, what things that we bring, like this is over $100,000, so that's where it becomes clear. that,
There's a number of school districts, our bottom line is very low. I think that in a policy could be raised to 10 or maybe 20,000
For 3
without having to
quotes.
come to the board.
Correct.
But there's some districts where that top level is 75, we're at 100 before it has to come to board approval to spend that money. There are some districts that are 75, some are 80. I mean, we're right up there, and I don't mind that, but I think it says $100,000 that we need to stick to that because it's not amended right now.
Yeah, well, the $3,000 now currently is just for getting 3 different quotes.
Correct.
We
We could raise that.
We could raise that to $10,000, because hasn't been raised in a
Yeah.
long time, inflation, and then just the amount of, for certain things that, like Mike will do, he has regular contractors that give specific services, for specific things that we wouldn't want to necessarily get 3 quotes, because we depend upon the specificity
Yeah.
of something.
It is if you want it to be.
Where,
So we could, I would be okay with making a motion
Yeah.
to amend the competitive bid to $10,000 and refer it to the general board.
the competitive bid, you want to go that low, probably.
It's at
No,
3.
that's the 3. That's,
Just for the 3 quotes, though.
the 3,000 says you have to be competitive. You have to send out 3 bids. He's saying make it $10,000 before you have to send out 3 bids.
Well, we
That's
gotta be,
exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
okay, it's, where that reads in the policy is when the purchase of and contract for single items, materials reasonably anticipated to reach or more shall obtain competitive bids. So that's currently at $100,000.
I understand that. That's not what I'm talking
Okay.
about.
Go to the
3,000.
3,000. Up
Okay,
above that, the sentence above it.
3001, let me pull.
It's the sentence above
Like
it.
I said,
And I have the template here, that's where hold on 1 second, I'm sorry. So right now, in the 3rd paragraph of the policy, designated should seek at least 3 price quotations on purchases of more than $3,000 for a single item, except in cases of emergency or.
And his motion is to make that 10,000, make it
Okay.
less cumbersome.
Okay, yes, that'd be great, so,
correct.
okay, and then we would just bring
I need
that purchase,
I need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, so the reason why, yeah, like he said, just to make it less cumbersome and to give more availability to people that are trying to do it, to
Mhm.
save money and time.
yes, that they wouldn't have to get the bids, and then,
But I'm not we're not talking about the 100,000. It's
Correct.
just, that's correct.
gotcha.
So I would make a motion to
So who's, I guess just
amend
talk,
that.
if I could
Yeah, discussion.
just talk about this a little bit.
Mhm.
Like, are you doing the purchasing now or who's doing it?
Well, I do the approvals, the final approval for all the purchase orders. So that's when they come through the system, I give the approval on them. So We did flag them when we went to Skyward. Jim wanted to see anything over $5,000. You know, that it can be tedious at points too, because there's a lot of things that come in just over $5,000 or within the $5,000, $10,000 range, but it just gives him an idea to see that, you know, then, you know, it's just more of a, is it in the budget or not? You know, everyone, for every purchase order that goes through the system has to have the money in the line item in order to make the purchase. So it's always gonna be within budget. At times, we shift what was the original plan budget to different account numbers, and they have to have it within a certain specific account number to have it go through the system. Try not to get too technical on it.
Yeah,
So-
I guess I'm just thinking about this from from a business perspective, like,
Mhm.
is there an incentive to drive costs down? Other than like, yeah, we want to drive costs down.
Well, you know, there's certain things we have in place where, you know, we try to funnel a lot of our purchases through Amazon, for example, because we have a membership through them, our Prime membership, which gets us the largest discounts. We do volume purchasing through the warehouse, things like the printing at the warehouse, you know, there are things like that, just routing more printing throughout the district to that MSC production center rather than doing it in district. So we aren't just, you know, it's not the wild, wild west where people are just purchasing whatever, you know, the purchaser, when she looks through the purchase orders that comes through, will review them,
Right.
and she will look for efficiencies. Her and there's like two people that kind of take team and manage purchasing.
Yeah.
Some of it is, for lack of a better term, you know, just left to, I don't want to say left to the people making the purchase, but we have to trust professional judgment if we would sit and question and pick apart every purchase order.
Right.
Sometimes we get 30 in one day. We
Right.
do, you know, sometimes, you know, in the real early parts of the year, we're 50, 60 purchase orders. So when they'll go on Amazon's website right now with how our e-commerce is set up, and they'll identify the items. And the items that we have go through the system on a very regular daily basis are small amount purchases, you know, like classroom supplies and that kind of thing, that, you know, the average art teacher buying construction paper, that's not going to be something that requires that bid and requires that. But the thing is, like for the example of the CISA 8 contract, we don't have the purchasing open yet for 24-25, but we had a signed contract. So we didn't really put in a purchase order to commit to the purchase, but we have a contract.
What are
So,
we doing with CISA 8?
there's 6.
Oh,
That's
okay.
right. So sorry, I don't think I'm crossing my numbers here. But, you know, so that's where it's like, really a purchase order is your formal commitment,
Right.
but it's already formally committed in a contract, so which is, you know, that's where we have to look at that. You know, we're not really truly committing district funds to it until there's a purchase order. And, you know, yeah.
If I could just jump in, and there is communication, like with teachers when they go to do a purchase order or something, and if purchasing finds what they think is comparable
Yeah.
for less money, there's always,
Mhm.
do you absolutely have to have the Joe's perfect such and such? What about this one, which will actually cost us 3/4 of the cost? And if they say, well, if they say, well, it doesn't have to be that one, then the other one's purchased. So there really are efficiencies that run through the system.
And that's what I was getting at more than anything, is my, concern about raising that, just playing devil's advocate here,
Yeah, no.
is it could maybe create an environment where they get a little bit lax on that, and then when vendors know they don't, hey, we're not gonna get shopped, right, like, they might charge a little bit more. So it just, I just wanna make sure that we don't, and without knowing the details of, what, if we were to look at all of our spend for the year, right, like
Mhm.
90 million or whatever it is,
Yeah.
how much of that is, 5,000 or less, or 10,000 or less, it's probably more on bigger ticket items, I'm sure, but I'm sure it's probably a
Yeah.
decent amount.
Mhm.
And so I just wanna make sure that we're not, it's kind of like a two-edged sword, right? Like you don't wanna create more work, unnecessarily, but you also want to make sure that you're getting a good deal. So it's kind of like finding that happy medium that,
Well, then we can,
You wanna make an amendment? to
we
that
can,
vote?
we can defeat it and say we're gonna watch it for a year to see what happens with that policy or,
I guess I'm just thinking out loud and just having the conversation. So I'm.
well, the motion's been made and seconded.
Yeah.
All those in favor of going to the 10,000, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
There we go, so now it's defeated, so now.
You defeated your motion.
Because I do like the idea of the double-edged sword, so I would be open to making a motion to raise it from $3,000 to $5,000 to compensate for inflation.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Where I would be at this point.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
You have discussion?
If I could, I would love to get, and I know we talked about this a couple years ago, Angela, but I would love to get, a recommendation from you and whoever's, whoever else in the business office, I guess, that gets involved in doing purchasing, like what they think would be appropriate. But it's like I said, it's kind of a tricky subject because you don't want to create more work for people, but you also, we have a fiduciary responsibility to taxpayers to make sure that we're controlling a massive budget, the largest budget in the county, right, for a public entity. And we want to make sure that we're getting the best bang for our buck, so to speak, on behalf of them, so.
So my scope, if you don't mind me interrupting, is like the facility. I'm trying to think of single items is what it says. What can you get, for that amount now that are single, like facility items that are gonna be,
3 desks, we're gonna be over. 4 desks. Do we put that out for a bid when we know the price of those desks?
Well, and it's, yeah,
Whiteboards, the communicative whiteboards. 5 of those new electronic whiteboards, way over $5,000. So you're gonna put those bid, when we've gone to the same company for years and years and years and years and years, the teachers know how to use them, they know what they're doing. Cost of living, this crease is gonna go up. Those are the things that I'm looking at. Every time we do this, we're gonna have to put out for 3 competitive bids. That's a lot of work for the business office.
yeah,
So,
devil's
okay,
advocate though, with your printing stuff.
yeah,
You brought that to the table and that's, if you would
that's
have
under
not been.
100,000, but
I
yeah.
know, but if you would have not been incentivized to try to shop around, that's what his argument is,
Mm-hmm.
saying if the business department doesn't do their job, they just keep re-signing or keep making recommendations, we never catch that stuff. So that's where that's where. I'm
yeah,
just
that's
trying to-
over $10,000, yeah.
Correct. I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
play
Okay,
it.
any other questions? I didn't mean this meeting to go on this long. The motion's been made to raise it from 3 to 5,000. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passed. We'll take it to the board, and Tony, you can try to sell the board that.
Go ahead, sorry.
Would we forward this one though through the policy committee? Is that, and just say.
But
that
we're
we
bringing a
had-
motion to go to the policy committee for the revision.
Got it, okay.
Sometimes I feel like, we shouldn't just change policy, just to change policy without really thinking it through, unless it's obvious. And maybe you're right, maybe that is the right
Well,
move.
maybe it's just a recommendation to go with the policy and then bring it to full board and then we'll all talk about it 2 more times. But
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I want the investigation on that
Yeah.
purchasing. What we would have to do to get out of that contract.
Yes.
Because I think if we can, then I'm gonna bring the motion to the board to cancel that and look internally.
Yeah, I'll get the options on that
Okay,
and talk with them, so.
any other questions? Again, I didn't mean for it to go this long, we had a lot to do. Maybe the next one we can
Yes.
focus our
I
agenda items.
apologize if some of those attachments were in there and I might have just miscommunicated with.
Any other questions, any other?
I was just gonna suggest, more of this, the next agenda. We gotta get rolling on this.
With options.
Yeah.
Yep,
I-
We have to have that on the next agenda.
it is, yeah.
Because it wasn't on this one. And I mean legally, I'm sure we have,
Well, we talked about under borrowing, so we were okay.
but it's a document.
Yeah,
So we'll attach it next time. And more like it, I agree.
Yeah.
and I talked very specifically to Jim about needing to have a little more time before we finalize these borrowing options because there's so many moving parts with the preliminary budget right now that
I just want to make sure, Chair.
A second.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Thank you, guys.
I want to make sure we do that so we don't get in trouble.
Yes.